Hey everyone, thanks for coming. Welcome to ASU. Congratulations on your acceptance. I really do hope you attend. Hopefully this session will help if you're still in a decision-making mode. My name is Dr. Brent Siebold. I lead Entrepreneurship and Innovation at the Ira A Fulton Schools of Engineering. And I'm also a faculty member. I teach undergraduate entrepreneurship and value creation in engineering. That's FSE 301. I also teach our master's in innovation and venture development, a couple of studios in that particular program. So if you have any questions about, curricular stuff, we can absolutely touch on that. So if you haven't noticed already, I'm assuming all of you are Zoom experts at this point, but I would definitely encourage you to use the Q&A function. If you have questions, feel free to pop them into Q&A. Otherwise, if there's something really compelling there and we have some time, I would love to get to know a few of you. If you're feeling comfortable and are willing to unmute, I can give you the authority to share your both voice and your video. If you'd like to do that, just go ahead and pop that into Q&A, or maybe annotate your Q&A with your willingness to be called upon to get into a bit of a discussion. But again, just really appreciate your time and joining us here for the Make It Happen session within our new student welcome series at Arizona State University. So let me jump right into it. I want to give you some key information to think about and consider. And then, as I mentioned, we can have a little more of a bit of a dynamic dialogue if we have time. But hopefully wanted to share with you some highlights of the things we do, not only at ASU, but specifically within the Fulton Schools of Engineering. So I'm going to go ahead and share my screen and share a few slides I put together for us here today. And I'll just walk you through it. So without further ado, one of the things that I spend a lot of time talking about with my students in the classroom is this idea of developing a competitive advantage for yourself. And one of the ways we can do that is through entrepreneurial thinking, or what we generally describe as entrepreneurial mindset. Let's see. I think I saw somebody raise their hand. Give me 1 second here. Let me just double check. Kanish, was that you who raised your hand? Sorry, I guess you can't answer me. I apologize, everybody. I generally host most of my talks in a non-webinar format. So I apologize for being a little slow on the uptake. Looking at Q&A, nothing in there, but I did see, maybe it was a wave. If you were saying hello, I'll take that as a hello. So hello, welcome Sun Devils. So anyway, let's get back into it. So in terms of a competitive advantage, really the manifestation of that is what we call the Fulton Difference here within the Fulton Schools of Engineering. And so the argument is, even though you've been admitted to ASU, and by the way, congratulations, you're not alone. There's many of your peers and fellow classmates are moving into their higher education at the same time you have. And so, I applaud all of you. It's actually a relatively small subset of the population. I think it's under 10% of the global population gets to go to college. So you're in the elite group already, but the idea here is it's not good enough for us here at ASU just to earn your bachelor's degree in engineering, regardless of the discipline, or your bachelor's degree in any discipline, even if you transfer to business or design or health or anywhere else you might be interested at the academy. The idea here is to graduate and make the world a better place. So one of the ways we can engage that during your time with us at ASU is through these programs that we've established to sit alongside our academic curricula, the courses that we teach, the degrees and the certificates and the programs that we offer are these enrichment programs that are designed to give you a competitive edge when competing for the roles and the opportunities that we hope you seek out after you earn your bachelor's degree. So earning your bachelor's degree is at this point assumed. You will do that. Now, I'm not trivializing it. I know there's a lot of hard work in front of you to earn that degree. But knowing that you're admitted and knowing that you're committed to earning that degree to crack open a million doors in the marketplace, it's these programs that we want to highlight that are going to crack them open even further for you. And once you enter into one of those doorways, aka a career, or forging your own product or service, or going into the high graduate degree program, or the nonprofit sector, it's these programs will help you create impact. So again, doing more than just the bare minimum. This is what we describe as the Fulton Difference. So in order to be effective as a change maker during and after your time with us at ASU, you see some great examples of programs that we have to kind of sharpen your tools in your tool belt for being a change agent and somebody who creates impact. So research plays a big role in that. In the world of entrepreneurship, you see that starred on the list. That's where I live. Research is part of our methodology to create value, to create new products, new services. So don't think research is just in the laboratory. It can also happen out in the field. We also, take great pride in the team that we have that helps our students transition into the real world of jobs and careers and all those fun things. So our Career Center has really specialized offerings for engineering students. And we, in fact, run a startup focused career fair almost every spring. So something that is a cool collab between us and the Career Center. And then finally, there at the bottom, my colleagues, faculty colleagues run Devil's Invent, Engineering Projects and Community Service. The list actually goes on and on. We have our Grand Challenge Scholars Program. We have a lot of other ways that you can make an impact both locally and globally. But really what I want to spend a lot of time talking about here today is this framework that we've created for you in the realm of entrepreneurial mindset. So let's take a closer look at that. As I mentioned at the very outset of my talk, I direct our instance of entrepreneurship and innovation at the Ira A Fulton Schools of Engineering. What does that mean? Well, it means basically we have a website. So if you Google entrepreneurship or entrepreneurship and innovation at the Fulton Schools of Engineering, or engineering and entrepreneurship, hopefully you're going to find this homepage. And I've got our programs and our offerings organized in this way where it's really about engaging, learning. That's our core. So our degree programs, our certificates, our minors, our majors. And then finally, the holy grail of entrepreneurship and innovation, as we'll talk about, is creating value potentially through a new entity of some sort. It could be a more than profit, a for-profit, a nonprofit entity, and we have support for you in those ways. So here we are today, just getting started. And again, welcome. What we do every week is we try to help you make something happen. So I run actually a speak. It's almost like it's constantly evolving. I'll tell you that. It's kind of like a speaker series. It's a get together. It's a community of practice. So every Friday at about noon local time here in Arizona, but you can tune in from all over the world. We've got people that tune in from Saudi and from China and from other places at midnight. But if you want to join us, all you need to do is do a quick Google search, Make It Happen at ASU, and you'll find this webpage. There's a screenshot, and then you just register on our Eventbrite, and we'll give you a weekly reminder of when these are happening and who the next speaker is. So if you happen to find this webpage right now, if you're Googling it off to the side, you'll notice that our spring series is almost coming to a close, but we will be announcing the summer series here very shortly. So if you're interested in getting involved and hearing tips and tricks from the pros about how you can develop your own competitive advantage in college and then ultimately in the marketplace, I would encourage you to actually register for this Friday's session. And then that will put you on a reoccurring list of people that we keep up to date on these offerings and topics and guest speakers. So it's a lot of fun. It's a great group. It's an evolving group, so I definitely welcome you in. And then, as we're talking about this menu of support programs and activities, just want to make it clear, it's not just happening within the Fulton Schools of Engineering. Entrepreneurship, as we'll talk about here in a second, is a horizontal discipline at the university. So we actually mirror our framework, our structure with the Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute, which serves the entire university. So I have great pride in having a senior level position with the Edson Entrepreneurship and Innovation Institute at the university. I've worked with that institute or the organization dating back to 2011. So I'm one of the few people at the university that have seen a really radical evolution of these programs over the past 2 decades. So really excited to answer a lot of that stuff for you. So there's Kanashik in Q&A. Thanks for chiming in there. I'm just very quickly reading Kanashik's question. Hopefully I'm pronouncing your name correctly. Good question about getting integrated with our business school, and really well timed. So the short answer to your question, Kanashik, is absolutely yes. So one of my greatest collaborators at the university level is my colleague Jared Byrne, who runs their instance of entrepreneurship at the W.P. Carey School of Business. And so he serves both the undergraduate and the graduate student population, as I do. So if you have any interest in learning more about the MBA programs or the Barrett Honors programs that we collaborate on, Jared Byrne is going to be a great contact for you in that domain. But for your degree, specifically in computer science, there is a lot of overlap between the faculty who do, for example, crypto research, cryptocurrency and Bitcoin and blockchain. There's a lot of that happening in computer information systems, which is based in business, and a lot of collaboration happening across to the software engineering departments at the Fulton Schools of Engineering. And then, of course, we're in the middle. Entrepreneurship straddles all of those academic disciplines and helps students really think about ways to, scale and sustain, any inventions or new ways of doing things, regardless of whether you're enrolled in the business school or in the Fulton Schools of Engineering. So again, great question. The short answer is yes. The cool thing about ASU is pretty much any question you might ask, the answer is usually yes, which I think gives us a competitive advantage over many schools across the United States and around the world. Is we have no shortage of resources. Really, any possible topic any human being can imagine, there's at least 1 or 2 people at the institution that can speak knowledgeably, or at least direct you towards some expert or domain of research that's happening. So if you're into medicine, if you're into technology, if you're into big data, all of these topics are at your fingertips in our academy of researchers, of teachers, of learners, and we're all in this together. So thanks everyone for allowing me to kind of go down that rabbit hole with a great question right out of the gate. Looks like we have another question coming in, but let me get through a couple more slides here, and then we'll maybe pause and unmute some folks and get into a bit of a dialogue. But as I mentioned, on the other side of the spectrum, you've got venture development. So Make It Happen is on one end of the spectrum. It's a really easy way on a weekly basis to engage in this kind of community of practice of people that want to develop an entrepreneurial mindset, to augment their skill set within their specific engineering degree or any degree for that matter. And then if you really like I have, start drinking and chugging the Kool-Aid, then you have an opportunity to move to the other side of the spectrum or the menu and practice what we call venture development. So you can develop a nonprofit, a more than profit, a for-profit. And the cool thing at ASU, for over 20 years, we've been awarding ridiculous amounts of money to student innovators like my friend here, one of the co-founders of Go Surf. You don't see a dollar amount written on this check, but generally our biannual demo day checks range between $1,000 and $100,000, with the average being somewhere in the ballpark of 5 to 10,000. But that's a pretty nice chunk of change for over 80 ventures that usually win funding on an annual basis at ASU. So I want to put this all in historical context as well. When you enter into ASU, whether you're in engineering or any other discipline, the goal is for the entire institution, the entire enterprise, to value entrepreneurship. And this is actually a list, maybe you've seen it, of 9 design aspirations of what we call the New American University. And the reason, we'll talk about this hopefully if we have time, ASU was ranked #1 in innovation, it's because of the design of the institution. We're all about access, as you know, you've been admitted, but we're also about excellence. And that's the point I want to drive home today. It's not just good enough for you to be a college degree seeker and ultimately a college degree earner. While you're here and after you leave, we want you to be the best. We want you to create something so amazing that it's going to impact humanity at a significant scale. And our president, Michael Crow, and all of our faculty and senior leadership, and really anybody with a pulse at ASU knows that if you want to sustain your impact as an innovator, as a change maker, as somebody that can build new products, new services, new ways of doing things, entrepreneurial thinking is your key to that scale and impact. And so entrepreneurship is not a bad word. It's not a capitalistic, you don't have to get an MBA. You don't have to take a specific business class to learn how to be an entrepreneur. It's really about thinking in that way of leveraging scarce resources, being creative, being inventive to change the world for the better. And then figuring out, this is where business comes into play, figuring out how to sustain that through a legitimate business model. So whether you're a poet or whether you're a social scientist or a humanitarian or a STEM focused person, entrepreneurship is for you at ASU. So don't be scared off by it. It's an old French word. It's got a lot of loaded definitions, but I'm here to tell you that if you want to be an entrepreneur, you're already a few steps ahead of other people in our community. Because by my definition here in engineering, the core of this old French word is about problem recognition and problem solving. So because all of you are engineers or are going to be engineers, hopefully in the coming years, my sense is you probably are pretty good at problem solving, whether it be equations or other kind of scientific methods of getting to the truth. This is what we expect entrepreneurs to do, is to identify a problem and then figure out a way to solve it using their guts. So I'm going to pause there. I've got some examples of how we might leverage what we call an entrepreneurial mindset to be, value identifiers of entrepreneurship around our community. But I want to take a look at the question and answer here. Oh, Kanashik, that's so nice of you. He said, thanks for answering his question. Let's see, do I have any examples of entrepreneurship or research programs? In chemical engineering, yes, I have a great one for chemical engineering. So whoever that is that's here, again, welcome to everybody. It looks like we have about 13 or 14 people in the audience. So I'm glad you're here. Great question. So yeah, I'll definitely answer that. Let me throw out some bigger kind of contextual pieces, and I'll definitely give you a great example of a chemical engineering startup that I have a front row seat to at the present moment. So very quickly, when we frame entrepreneurship as problem solving, the one thing I want to impress upon everybody here is that this is a humanistic endeavor, right? So unlike the equations that you might solve in trig or calc or in physics 1 or physics 2 or whatever scientific problem solving you may have done recently, what we want to start training you to think as here at ASU and within our engineering schools is a human-centered problem solver, right? So humans are at the core of what we do and how we think as engineers. So within the realm of humans problems, I want to make it clear that there's actually a sliding scale, right? So when you're at ASU, the challenge is to think about solving problems that are big enough and have enough gravity and are not frivolous. So in my class that I teach, I ask for students to nominate their own, problem statements that they'd like to work on in an open-ended way. And it's sometimes frustrating, when students and others gravitate towards problems that, are a little frivolous. So this is just an example of, one problem that I see quite often is the speed of food delivery, right? So it just takes too long to get my fast food. So that is a problem legitimately, but is it a big enough problem? Of course, we're living in a world right now where we've got this massive problem called COVID-19, right? So this is a sliding scale. On one end of the scale, it's like, that's kind of annoying that I have to wait an extra 10 minutes for DoorDash. I should figure out a way to solve that. Or on the other end of the scale, you've got basically your friends, your family, loved ones, other people in the community that are dying. So if we're going to invest our time and our energy and resources in problem solving, the trick is to leverage an entrepreneurial mindset to go through a process of really spending your time and energy to solve for X. So let's unpack this definition of entrepreneurial mindset. Entrepreneurial solving, creating, designing for X. Mindset, the expectation is if you're an ASU student, you have the disposition, the attitude, and the motivation to actually do it, right? So there's a difference between thinking about it and saying, wow, somebody will figure that out down the road versus, hey, I'm a college student, I'm smart, I'm at the #1 school in innovation. I'm not going to wait for somebody else to do it. I'm going to do it. I have the disposition, the attitude, and the motivation to solve for X, to have an entrepreneurial mindset. So in this definition, in no place do you see you have to earn a certificate in entrepreneurship or a minor in business or an MBA. Those are all great things. If you want to do those things, you can do those things. We have that. But it's really about your mindset and about your ability to latch on to a problem statement, hopefully maybe somewhere in the middle of that spectrum, whether it's, speed of late night fast food delivery or death, somewhere in the middle. I'm going to challenge you to focus in on a problem statement that you deeply care about. While you're at ASU and beyond your time at ASU, what is the domain within your own life, your personal life, your professional life, your community life that you care about deeply? So when we talk about entrepreneurial mindset, the very first step of that, of engaging that mindset for yourselves is to really zero in on the domain of your life that you deeply care about. You're really interested. You can't stop thinking about. When you wake up in the middle of the night, it's on your mind. And let me give you an example of this. Anybody know who this is? Feel free to use Q&A. I think, unfortunately, chat is disabled. Anybody recognize who this guy is? Yeah, Eli, thanks. You nailed it. That's the Woz. I like your spelling of Woz better than his. It's Steve Wozniak with an O, but I like WAZ better. It's cool. And Mark, thanks for chiming in on chat. Sorry, I didn't miss your question there about Grand Challenge, but we'll definitely talk about that. But yeah, this is Steve Wozniak, and Steve actually was the one who inspired me to really kind of zero in on this opportunity for all of you to work on something you care about. Before, I got to be honest with you all, I was really keen on pushing students and even myself in the direction of solving for X in kind of an emerging, disruptive way. Kind of chasing shiny things is another way to describe it. But when Steve Wozniak came to ASU a couple of years ago, he was, talking to a bunch of our, of course, computer science students, but also a lot of our mechanical, civil, chemical, aerospace engineers that were gathered around him in this courtyard. And he said, you know what? If you want to follow my footsteps and be a great inventor and a great innovator and a great, product developer, step one is identify a problem statement in your life that you want to solve. And in order to do that, you first have to engage your entrepreneurial mind. And we describe entrepreneurial mindset with 3 C's. And so I added another C for care. But right out of the gate for an entrepreneurial mindset, we focus on curiosity. Why is something the way it is? So the way that this slide describes this is friction. What in your life isn't exactly the way you want it to be? What is inefficient? What is causing you to furrow your brow? Like, this is annoying. Why do I have to deal with these many steps in the process when it could be as simple as 1 step? So these are kind of open-ended questions that I might encourage you, if you want to make it happen, if you want to adopt an entrepreneurial mindset, if you want to practice an entrepreneurial mindset. It's really about, kind of keeping tabs on those little moments in life, both academically, professionally, socially, where you're kind of noticing things that just aren't as magical or as as efficient as they could be. So for Steve Wozniak, I know probably some of you, certainly Eli knows this story of, what was the inefficiency for Steve. This is Steve in the foreground, Steve Wozniak, and then you might know the other Steve Jobs in the background of this photo. The friction point was not being able to communicate with their buddies that lived down the street via this new technology called LAN, local area networks, that were being set up all over the country at this time in the late 70s. So their friction point was very acute, and they cared deeply about it. They couldn't get enough of it. This was their hobby. So I'd ask all of you right now, what's your hobby, right? What do you spend a lot of time doing? Just like Steve and Steve are doing here in this photo. So is there something within your hobby area, the area of your life that is not being forced on you, whether that's school or work or other things that you might have going on, that you just can't get enough of? And within that domain, is there a friction point or some area that could be improved, right? So that's the genesis of solving for X. You've got to start with a problem statement, something that isn't the way that your imagination is telling you it could be, right? And then once you identify that friction point, in Apple's case, communicating from node A to node B, then you go and you solve it. And that's exactly what I think they're doing in this picture. So it's pretty cool. So this is actually a photo of Steve Wozniak from the back, talking to you guys, to all of you, just kind of like I'm talking to you guys on Zoom. I'm not as cool as Steve Woz, but this is the story that he was telling to our students. And I actually want to point out, you see the student in the first row of this photo, the guy wearing the tie. That's our head nerd, as he calls himself, at the Fulton Schools of Engineering. That's our Dean, Kyle Squires. And so I love this guy. He's got an absolute entrepreneurial mindset. He's a great leader for our Fulton Schools of Engineering. We have over 20,000 engineers at ASU. We have more female engineers at ASU than most engineering schools have total students. And so it's that level of gravity that enables us to bring together groups like this and bring in Steve and tell his story of how he flexed his entrepreneurial mindset. Let me pause there. Just want to go back to the Q&A and make sure we're hitting everybody's questions. So I apologize, Mark, I missed you there in the flow. But Grand Challenge Scholars Program is an opportunity to work on some of the meta challenges of our time: food, water, energy, transportation, and so on and so forth. So Mark, I'm assuming you've been admitted into that program. You're going to be taking Grand Challenge Scholars coursework during your first year. One of the requirements of being a Grand Challenge Scholars participant and innovator is that you incorporate entrepreneurial tools and resources and approaches into your problem solving method. So the good news, Mark, is entrepreneurial thinking is going to be baked into the program by my colleagues Amy Trowbridge and Holland, who teach primarily in that course. And then they're also going to ask that you challenge yourself to have your own entrepreneurial experience. So you can do that by taking my class, which is FSC 301 during your junior year or equivalent, or you can get involved with a program that I hinted at earlier, Venture Devils, where you turn your Grand Challenge Scholars invention or intervention into a sustainable nonprofit or even for-profit enterprise. So Mark, the short answer to your question is yes. If you're in Grand Challenge Scholars Program, you will have myriad opportunities to not only practice entrepreneurial thinking and methodologies as part of the coursework, but then you'll have an extra opportunity to do it outside of the program as a technology spinout, as a new venture, or whatever you want to do. And, by the way, if you're in Grand Challenge Scholars Program, that doesn't limit you from also participating in Devil's Invent, which is a hackathon that happens about 6 or 8 times a year. You can do epics, engineering projects and community service. You can do global resolve. You can do innovation space. And ultimately, my program that I helped develop, Venture Devils, is open to everybody. So Mark, I hope that helped. Oh, very good. Oh, you're in Barrett too. Okay. So when you get to your Barrett honors thesis, as I was answering the question from Kanashik, you can actually do your Barrett honors thesis with myself and my colleague Jared in WP Carey through a program called Founders Lab. So you can turn your Barrett honors thesis into a startup. So that's pretty cool. So Mark, yes, you can tie everything together any way you want. The sky's the limit. In fact, you're not going to have enough time. So the earlier you get started, the better. And by the way, everything I'm sharing with you here today is open to pre-first year students. So if you want to get started today, you're welcome to. Let's see. Okay, yeah, I didn't want to miss our anonymous question about chemical engineering. So I will absolutely get to that. Looks like we've got just under a half hour still to go. So hopefully I can keep you guys entertained for a few more minutes. And I want to definitely tell a story about one of my great student chemical engineer innovators. But to reinforce this idea of human-centered design, the human-centered engineering process, I just want to show you some quick examples of that. First, the inspiration. I did not take this photo, but I'm very proud that I was in the audience. As you can tell by my haircut, I'm a big Jeff Bezos fan. I'm not a fan of his personal life, but I am a fan of his approach to problem solving as an entrepreneur, right? So, and Jeff Bezos, by the way, is a big fan of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak. So we're in this kind of cycle of good innovation leaders informing other good innovation leaders. And I would argue that Michael Crow, the president of Arizona State, and Dean Kyle Squires, our leader in engineering, share much of the same mindset that's embodied by leaders like these examples here in the slides. But one of the things Amazon is doing really well, whether you're an Amazon customer or not, is they take a very structured approach to working backward from you as the customer, or let's say me, I am a customer. So when I say I want to click buy on your website, I want my product to be delivered to my doorstep within the next 5 minutes. Being customer focused or human centered in that problem solving structure, most companies would say, well, that's impossible. We can't do that. But, if you have an open mind and being, the human is telling us, hey, we should really think through the ways it might be possible to deliver the product, then it really opens the aperture and your imagination really comes into play when solving for X, right? So this looks super creepy, this huge blimp. I don't want to see this flying over Tempe, Arizona anytime soon, but this is an example of Amazon engineers working backwards from the customer request, which is, how do I get my product quickly and cheaply and efficiently? So again, let's hope that these robots don't take over the world. I took this video, by the way, I was at this same conference where I got to listen to Bezos talk about entrepreneurial mindset at Amazon through their Remars initiative, which is research, machine learning, space, all that fun stuff, and got to be freaked out by some of these Boston Dynamics dogs spot. But when you come to campus, if you come to Tempe or Poly or anywhere else around the world that ASU is set up, you're going to see we're big fans of technology advancement. This is one of our Starship this is pre-pandemic, but now they've multiplied during the pandemic, where we're delivering food via these Starship robots all over campus to keep people safe and socially distanced. So the key method here of being human-centered is something that I teach in my class called customer development. So many of you as engineers will learn very, very rigorously how to develop products, or AKA how to develop software or devices, contraptions, the list goes on and on, right? So physical ones and zeros or otherwise manifestations of your idea. But what I'm here to do is help you balance the prototyping process. See the cardboard prototype in the center of this photo needs to be equally balanced with customer development data, right? So talking to the ultimate end user, the human that's going to be impacted by your invention, is equally important in the entrepreneurial mindset methodology or the entrepreneurial venture development process. So when you come to ASU, if you're in Grand Challenge Scholars, if you're in Epics, if you're in Devils Invent, or if you're ultimately in Venture Devils with me and my colleagues, we are going to ask you, what did they say? And in this case, it's these potential customers that are being interviewed. This is a photo of Mill Avenue, by the way, in downtown Tempe. And you can see these students are doing data collection. They're doing marketplace research, which is just as important as the lab-based research. And look at this great data that this team is getting back. The guy in the middle is basically providing disconfirming evidence to their hypothesis, which is going to improve the ability to be human-centered and working backwards correctly from what is the pain point, what is the best case scenario in terms of a solution. So the mantra here is develop customers, not products. Or if you're really intent on developing, hopefully not an app, where I think we've got as many apps as we need at this point, but maybe a new skill. If you're going in the voice interface route, which I would encourage, or even the visual user interface. We're going to see a lot of that happening. We've already seen it from Google and of course from Amazon and other players. But as you're developing your technological solution, you also have to balance that with the human beings that are going to use, and more importantly, pay for your solution once it's ready. And here's a good example of that. So this human being was directly backing up some hypotheses, some design choices that the student innovators were making with their prototyping process. So let me take another look at chat. And I apologize to the person that asked the question earlier about chemical engineering. I promise I will not lose track of that question. But let's see here. We've got Trent. Oh yeah, will this be, you want to watch this again, Trent? Oh my gosh. I hope you take my class, because you're going to get this stuff in more than you ever want of it. But yes, we can make this this recording available. Whoever you got the invitation for today's event from, whether that's my colleague Kaylee Graham or anyone from our student services team in recruitment, retention, student welcome, somebody in your MyASU dashboard can probably get you this recording. I think Kaylee mentioned to me that this recording is being managed by our student services team at the university. So Trent, great question. I'll take that as a compliment. I don't know if you intended it that way, but I'll take it anyway. So let me go really quick. Again, I'm going to skim over some of this stuff. Prototyping is absolutely key, but doing so efficiently. The key to innovation is building something that people love, not like. And this is where I'll talk about my student, my chemical engineering student. But we have several examples of both engineering faculty and students moving in the direction of creating something that is game changing. So remember back to problem statements, right? They come on a sliding scale. On the low end, it's frivolous, kind of everyday annoyances. On the other end, it's death. And then here's a good example of some really great in-between problem statements that have quite a bit of gravity. Zero Mass Water recently rebranded to Source Global. And this is one of our faculty members, Dr. Cody Friesen, who developed basically a solar powered, imagine a dehumidifier. It pulls water out of the atmosphere and serves it up to people that are need water, clean drinking water, more readily accessible. So super amazing technology. And through his company, Zero Mass Water, now Source Global, really changing the world for the better. So very proud of Dr. Cody Friesen. You'll have a chance to interact with him through our ASU Innovation Open program that we run every single year. And then Matt and Ashe, two of my friends that came up through our graduate programs, developed a proprietary technology in the lab to save energy bills with a paint additive called Encoat. Super cool technology being applied in industrial settings right now, and they're off to the races. About a decade ago, this guy on the bottom left, or at least my bottom left of the slide, Sohail Doshi, was a computer science undergraduate. And I got to tell you the story. He was working with a client, and the client said, "Hey, this data set you just provided to me is great, but I'd love for it to be more visual. Can you do that?" And so Sohail read that email and he said, "Wow, that sounds like an opportunity." And this is his entrepreneurial mindset kicking in. Why might I have to write back to this client and say, "No, I can't visualize this data for you. You're going to have to jump through these 10 extra hoops to get it the way you want it. You'll have to write my boss, and then that boss will have to talk to the other boss." So Sohail said, "You know what? This request is 100% achievable. So I'm not advising you to do this," but he dropped out of his ASU computer science program and went on to found Mixpanel. It's one of what we call a unicorn companies. It was at one time valued over $1 billion, might be valued over that right now, but really cool story. If you go to Sohail Doshi's LinkedIn page, he claims ASU as a computer science dropout, which I will take as a point of pride for us in engineering. He'll come back one of these days and finish his degree. And then Neolite has really achieved a lot of acclaim over the last decade for really cool biomedical engineering team, as you see in the photo, came together with a mission to solve the problem of infant jaundice, which was happening in quite a bit, more than it should in India. And this team solved for X, and now they're really creating a lot of impact. Anyway, for those of you that might not be local to Arizona, those of you that are, you know all about Waymo. We are not only kind of embodying this idea of change making, prototyping in the labs at ASU, but I think it's a bigger opportunity in the fabric of our local ecosystem. Our state leaders, our local leaders are really kind of tuned in to this idea of entrepreneurial mindset and being what we now call, if you look at the ASU homepage today, this idea of being anti-fragile and through innovation and innovation management. And there's plenty of examples of this happening, in non-entrepreneurial ways. So getting back to the story, I didn't have a slide about my chemical engineering student, Elma, but Elma, this is somewhat related to COVID. Elma said last semester in class that, she, because of COVID and other reasons, her goggles were fogging up, because of the mask situation. So she wanted to develop a way for people that wear glasses to be able to wear ski masks and lab goggles and other things. So as a chemical engineer, she developed a way to create a contact lens as a sticker that then goes on top of your lab goggles or on top of your ski goggles. And now her company's, it's called Seekers. So you see, but it's like a sticker. So sticker and Seekers is a chemical engineering led startup. And Elma is the co-founder. She's actually now become my TA in my class. So great example of a chemical engineer with an entrepreneurial mindset. So hopefully that answered your question. The list goes on and on, by the way. Another student that comes to mind, chemical engineer. This is probably a bad example. I should stop recording right now, but he developed powdered alcohol, totally illegal, by the way, in his chemistry lab as a chemical engineer. And now he's marketing that product on online, I believe on Amazon as Bruzy. So if you want to look up bruzy.com, that's one of your ASU fellow graduates there, Neil. Great, very smart chemical engineer. And he's really doing it for altruistic reasons, really to make things safer and better in the world. So two crazy examples there, but just the tip of the iceberg. We have some really amazing technology being developed in almost every single lab you can find. So just let me take a look at the time. Yeah, we're getting pretty close on time. But I do want to really quick let you know, I wanted to unpack for your kind of call to action to make something happen, these two key words at ASU: entrepreneurship. So we spend a lot of time on entrepreneurship as problem solving, human-centered design, being customer focused as well as technology focused simultaneously. But the other key word that I want you to be very, very comfortable with in coming to ASU is innovation. Because if you ask, Reddit, why is #1 in ASU #1 in innovation, you're going to find some crazy answers on Reddit. But I want to tell you, it's not about, these examples of startups and entrepreneurial thinkers. Let me just fast forward here. I want to make the case that, let me see, my definition of innovation at ASU is something that's new, better, and valuable. So just a real quick lesson here. If you look at the root word innovation, the Latin root of innovation is novus. And I'll save the pop quiz for another time, but novus translates to new, right? So when people think of innovation, a lot of times they think it has to be novel, right? So there you see an icon of a patent. So is a patent innovation? On a sliding scale, the answer is yes. But I'm here to tell you, and ASU is making an argument that it's not good enough just to create new technology or patentable technology or trademark branding. That's innovation, but it's not at scale. It's not serving our mission as innovators. What we need to do, and what Clayton Christensen argued, who wrote the book on disruptive innovation, is it's got to be technologically better. It's got to be patentable. Yeah, it's got to be novel. That's the root, novelty, novus. But it's got to also be technologically better. It's got to be better than the status quo, right? So is your invention better? And if it's not, again, you could say, yes, it's innovative, but I'm not going to be in love with it. And that's the holy grail. The holy grail of innovation is, did you build something that people love? And so now you might be asking, well, what are you trying to say? ASU, people love ASU? The answer is absolutely yes. We have over 100,000 human beings that have deviated from the status quo, whatever other options they may have, to be members of the ASU community, myself included. Why? Because we have a better product. We have a better service. We are new. We're the new American university. We're better than some other options that might exist. And we're valuable because we've created a teaching and learning environment that is inclusive and empowers all of you to make an impact immediately and hopefully long-term within your life. So, ASU, #1 in innovation, it's a big deal, but it's really about the design of our university and how you are going to play a role in it. So really excited to be one of many people that are welcoming you to ASU, and more specifically to the Ira A Fulton Schools of Engineering. Again, my name is Dr. Brent Siebold. I lead Entrepreneurship and Innovation for the Fulton Schools. I work very closely with many of our staff and faculty, specifically faculty within our technology, entrepreneurship, and management program, and our master's degrees in innovation and venture development, as well as our faculty. Talked a little bit about our faculty inventors and entrepreneurs. So we have a great group, whether you're actively kind of engaged with us or you're just a fan of, adopting an entrepreneurial mindset. I'm here to welcome you with 100% open arms. So anything I can do to help, I'm here to do that. And really appreciate all of you tuning in for this session as part of your transition into the new American University, #1. So let me take one last look at Q&A, make sure I didn't. Okay, good. So I did hit the chemical engineering examples. So that was cool. Recording, yes. Let me look through here, see if we missed anybody. Mark, yeah, got it. Cool. I think we got all of the Q&A. If anybody has anything else, let me know. We've got about, I think, I would assume this session was scheduled to go until 4 p.m. local time. So I'd love to answer some more off the cuff questions if anybody has any. Otherwise, again, the invitation stands for you to engage with me on a weekly basis through our Make It Happen session. That was part of the reason for the title of today's session, is that if you want to get involved right away, we can do that as early as this Friday. I'll be hosting a session, Make It Happen, if you just Google it, on ASU Make It Happen, ASU Engineering Make It Happen. You can jump back in with me this Friday, and then you'll be on the list to be invited in over the summer, and then of course throughout every academic term thereafter. So again, I see people being pulled away to other fun things this afternoon and evening. So again, thanks everyone for coming. You are officially excused, but anyone else that has more specific questions about their scenario, whether it be their major or interest in the realm of innovation or entrepreneurship, feel free to continue to use the Q&A. Thanks everyone. Have a great night. Welcome to ASU. Go Devils.